going to ignore this.
Becky, we can see it. Looks good.
Okay, good. I was just looking at what. Okay, I'm good. All right, we are here because of the legislative rule and the House Bill 4015, Legislative Rule 148, and the House Bill 103. We're also going to review the governor's policy today. And as Tim mentioned, all this information will be housed at our on our website. Okay. Tim, it's not clicking. There we go. All right. The legislative bill and rule established the reporting requirements, and the House bill created, of course, all of these legislative rules and House bills are what created the birth of the fleet management system, as well as each of you as agency fleet coordinators. Just a reminder, you all are always our central point of contact for anything fleet related. We also try to provide you all the tools necessary to properly evaluate and manage your fleet. And we'll go through, that's what the purpose of this whole training session is to explain your reporting requirements, explain your responsibility as an AFC, and give you all the tools and introduce those to you. Of course, like I mentioned, we're going to go over House Bill 4015, House Bill 103, the administrative rule, which governs state-owned vehicles and their usage. Everybody here, I hope, is aware and familiar with the Governor's Office Administrative Policy for employee use of employer-provided motor vehicles. All of these complete versions are on our website. The House Bill 4015 was passed during the 2018 legislative session, and it became effective in June 5th of that year. It establishes the requirements of governing the use of state vehicles. It also explains the reporting requirements and the responsibilities for the fleet coordinators, the information that must be collected and maintained on each state vehicle log sheet, a manner for which each spending unit can report to the division, and the information that shall be collected and maintained, the requirements and the policies governing commuting and take-home state vehicles. Of course, we've already accomplished the DMV relicensing project, and everybody has already gone through their first renewal for their license plates. There's the annual report that must be submitted by each agency. Also explains the auditor's office, which will be regulating 20% of compliance over the 5 years time. It also mandates agencies' use of FMD services for maintenance and fueling. The House Bill 103 was passed during the 2018 legislative session, and it was effective on June 5th, 2018. It added the requirement to House Bill 4015 that requires the spending units to send FMD a list of bona fide, non-compensatory business reasons for which a state vehicle is being provided to each employee on or before July 1st of each year. And that means that a vehicle is assigned to an employee, and that employee commutes to and from home and the work location in that vehicle for business purposes. The reporting of this non-compensatory reason can be done with the form shown there on your screen, DOA FM HB 103. And again, that's on our website under the AFC resources page. The legislative rule was passed during the 2018 legislative session, and it was effective on 4/3 of 2019. The administrative rule, Title 148, Series 3 for state-owned vehicles, it expands on House Bill 4015. It provides dates and identifies the data and the information that needs to be maintained and reported. We tried to solidify all of your responsibilities as an AFC for your agency in a reporting checklist. and we also have that on our link. If you have an older version, we have updated our information on this reporting checklist. So please make sure that you follow up with the new version, and we will go over that later in the presentation. The Governor's Office administrative policy is the employee use of employer-provided motor vehicles. This policy must be reviewed by each driver of a state-owned vehicle by January 15th of each year, and a copy must be kept in each employer-provided vehicle in the glove compartment. We've also created on the LMS system, we have the training course, which if you have a new driver in the middle of the year, or somebody that's missed that January 15th deadline, you can log in to the LMS system at any time, search the course by typing FLT 100 in the course catalog section under the catalog ID. And if your drivers don't have access to the LMS, they still need and have the responsibility to be aware of the Governor's policy and sign the DOA FM 01011 form that's located on our website. And that form should be retained by your agency, by the AFC. Not bona fide non-compensatory employees. That's so easy to say, isn't it? They are who are provided a state vehicle. It's explained in House Bill 103. The form must be provided to FMD on or before July 1st of each year. And further on, I mean, you all can read, the commuting means that the use of state-owned vehicle by an employee who's been assigned a state vehicle, whether permanent or temporary, to drive to and from the employee's home and regular place of employee. This is in accordance with the IRS publication, Employer's Tax Guide to Fringe Benefits. It must be reported to the IRS and through your Human Resources Department. De minimis personal use means the use of a state vehicle for personal purposes, of which the value of that personal use is so small that the accounting for it would be unreasonable and administratively impractical, including while commuting when permitted. And this is further explained in the Governor's policy as well. And this is also in accordance with the Internal Revenue System publication, IRS publication. Of course, the birth of each of you, and we appreciate all of you because we know that this isn't the only job that you do. But in the legislative 148 code, it states that each spending unit which utilizes a state-owned vehicle shall designate an agency fleet coordinator as a central point of contact between the agency and fleet management division. This means that the AFC will be charged with tracking the state's vehicles, reporting required information to the Fleet Management Division, and communicating with the FMD regarding the management of the vehicles assigned to the agency. You're probably seeing emails coming from Tim regarding this reporting right now. On or below July 1st of each spending unit shall designate an agency fleet coordinator and notify us within 30 days of any change of a designated AFC. Agency fleet coordinators are responsible for ensuring employees assigned a state-owned vehicle by the spending unit are familiar with all the rules, policies, and programs related to the state-owned vehicle use. Agency fleet coordinators are required to review and document driver understanding of these rules, policies, and programs no later than the January 15th of each calendar year on the form designated by the Fleet Management Division. So, yay, this is why you all are here. This is the form on our website on the AFC resource page. This is where you can find your AFC coordinator contact profile. And that, of course, is the beginning of the fiscal year is supposed to be submitted to FMD. I can't stress enough how important you all are to our communication with the rest of your agency. You're our central point of contact. I know that not every email that's sent from FMD may not relate to you specifically. If it's accounts payable, of course, you're going to forward an invoice to your accounts payable division. If it's something related to BRIM, you're going to be the person that relays that message to your safety person. You're responsible for making sure the invoices for ARI maintenance, fuel, and lease payments are routed to the appropriate accounts payable representative in your agency. You're responsible for communication with the fixed asset person regarding entry of your agency-owned vehicles into OASIS. Remember, this must be done prior to receiving any of your state plates for your agency-owned vehicles. Also got to put in a plug for FMD. If you lease a vehicle through us, then we take care of all of that fixed asset and the licensing for the vehicle. You must update your vehicle information with BRIM. Whether the vehicle is owned by the agency or leased from fleet, that information for your agency must be updated with BRIM when the changes occur, not just once a year. Responsible for forwarding all communication from FMD, the appropriate person within your spending unit. I know we send out a lot of information trying to help with the Goodyear contract. So that information from the auditor, please forward that to your accounts payable people. You're responsible for ordering vehicles for replacement. And I know Kenny could probably step in here and let you know the ways that ARI, you can run a love report and really evaluate your fleet for proper replacement. You're also responsible for reporting requirements, driver training, and accident procedures. Another point I would like to make here is the driver training. We do have new services, which we'll talk about in the presentation for next month. We have a driver safety program that BRIM has recognized as being able to reduce your premium if your drivers are taking that training. Here's our reporting checklist. And like I said, we have updated this somewhat, but it goes through, we've tried to break this down and make it easier for you so that you've got a bullet point that knows that you know on January 15th what needs to be done, July 1st what needs to be done. And then there's also things that need to be done and made aware of daily or as needed. In that second section, you can see that if you have a new fleet coordinator and the maintenance parameters, there's different changes we have made available to each of you AFCs that, again, we will talk about in the ARI section. But each one of these items are very important and your responsibility to take care of. And we're always here to try to help you if you have any questions with any of these reporting requirements. You know, it goes through the spending unit shall report the number of occasions. This is where we're at coming up with your utilization requirements. And Tim, if you want to step in and do any explaining here, you can, just because it's time of the essence.
But actually, I think right now might be a good time to just kind of pause and answer.
Okay.
A question about non-compensatory drivers. We get a lot of these questions every year. So, what is a non-compensatory driver? I've researched it. I read the IRS stuff, and to tell you what, it only confuses you more when you actually read it. But the best way that I can describe it is that if you have a vehicle assigned to an employee and that employee takes that vehicle home, they should be listed on this form. If that employee comes into the office every day to pick up that vehicle, or even if they're at home and get called out after hours and have to go to the office to get the vehicle, they should not be listed on the form. Basically, the overnight parking address of the vehicle is the biggest piece of this.
And whether the vehicle is assigned or not, I mean, to support what Tim was saying, if the vehicle is assigned to an individual, and to Mandy's question, if they whether or not they report any commuting miles, if that vehicle is assigned to a driver and they take that vehicle overnight to a non-state parking location. That's a non-compensatory driver. So if it's a pool vehicle, it's not assigned to anyone. 5 or 6 different people drive that vehicle, and it's always parked at a state parking place. Then no, that's not a non-compensatory. So it's only assigned drivers that take these vehicles to park them overnight, other than a state location. Does that help?
Yeah,
And,
I think it does. Yes.
and Tammy, yes, there will be a copy on this on our website. We'll have, I think Tim's got it down to 3 parts. So each one of the parts will be loaded on our website, and we'll have that for any new AFC that comes on board, or for a reference tool for the current AFCs.
All right, Becky, we were.
Do you want me to go through each item on the reporting checklist, or is it pretty self-explanatory?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think if anybody has any questions about this checklist, feel free to go ahead and ask them now, or you can email me later if you do. A lot of this stuff I do email you all saying, hey, I need this from you. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier, I would say.
Yeah, and the checklist, we just did a cohort meeting on it last month, and we did make some changes to kind of clarify some of the language on that checklist.
Located public college. Founded in 1872, GSD has nearly 150 years of educating and supporting students.
Uh-oh.
Well, I guess this is also some other training besides fleet management. We're multitasking around here. So
We're all learning.
We're all learning.
We're getting better.
to kind of bring it back to where we were, I think Becky mentioned about the utilization part. Every July, the utilization forms are wiped out, and Tim asked you to replace those with your new utilization for the previous year. So, and then those that have those 2 exemptions, what is it, Tim? SEV and
ERV.
And ERV. You have to document the number of occasions, and that's usually done through your vehicle log, that you can document the number of occasions it was used for that specific exemption.
And anybody that filed for an SEV or ERV last year, you will be getting an email from me next week with a list of those vehicles.
And I think we go over that in a just a little bit. We'll explain the SEV and the ERV and the reporting requirements on that as well.
And the big philosophy of this whole thing is, once we've defined the state inventory, I mean, we got a great inventory count now. Everybody's using West Virginia Oasis. You have to have it in there before you get a state plate. So there's some checks and balances there. So now we're looking at, why are we providing these vehicles to these agencies in these numbers? If it's assigned to the guy, is it for state purposes? Or are we just giving a vehicle for someone to travel to and from work? If that's the case, we don't want to do that. We definitely don't want to be in the business of providing a fringe benefit to someone just to travel to and back from work, when not everybody gets that opportunity. So the auditor's office has started coming around. I think they started with higher ed. We've already sent the auditor's office a review for, I think it was veterans, Marshall, WVP, Bluefield, and Concord. And basically they'll be coming around and checking agencies to make sure that, assigned vehicles, are their names in ARI? Did you send out the utilization forms? Do we have overnight parking address? Do we have the purpose in ARI? And this checklist is basically everything in the House bill and rule that an agency has to be responsible for reporting, or making sure you have a copy of it. So it's a little checklist, a cheat sheet, if you will, for the AFC. So if there's any questions or anything, please speak up, or otherwise Becky will just continue on.
Okay. Each state-owned vehicle, this further defines the information that's required to be provided by the House, by the legislative rule. Each spending unit with a state-owned vehicle shall conduct an annual survey of its fleet and reconcile its vehicle reports with those of the Fleet Management Division and with the centralized inventory database maintained by the ERB Planning Board, which is OASIS. Agency fleet coordinators shall provide by October 31st of each year or upon request to the Fleet Management Division data on each state-owned vehicle. I want to preempt all this information by saying if you use ARI, this information is in there for you. Makes it easy. We've given you the tool for this. You want your vehicle identification number, which is your VIN, the manufacturer, make, model, and year of the vehicle, class or type of each vehicle, license plate number of each vehicle, date of acquisition of each vehicle, vehicle inspection records for each vehicle, annual costs associated with the vehicle rental expenses, annual reimbursement by the agency for employees' personal vehicle use, which shall include total miles and reimbursement rate, funding source for each vehicle, the department unit, unit number, and fund number, odometer readings for each vehicle, fuel usage for each vehicle, all maintenance events associated with each vehicle, and the annual total indirect costs of operating state-owned vehicles for the agencies. I know that's a daunting task, but like I said, if you use our services, and by using our fueling and maintenance services, FMD can run these reports out of ARI statewide and to help you assist meeting the mandatory reporting requirements. All of this is required because then FMD has to provide the governor and the Joint Committee on Government and Finance an annual report of vehicle state usage, including operating costs and the number of vehicles. So we don't just make these things up when we're asking you all this information. It's by law and it's by code that this must be provided. The legislative rule also states that you must have a vehicle log. Each state-owned vehicle shall have a vehicle log sheet associated with the vehicle. Drivers, whether the vehicle is assigned to an individual or is used by multiple drivers, shall record information related to total miles, miles commuted, destinations, and purpose. I also have to put another plug in for another new service we have, which would assist in this, telematics. With our new contract, we also have telematics available. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn if I say FMD's paying for the equipment still, and then the agency is just responsible for the monthly charges for that. Commuting in state-owned vehicles, it further explains commuting value. We've reviewed this a little bit in our previous discussion. This further goes on to the definition and exactly how the law states it. And it is further explained in the governor's administrative policy concerning the employee use of employer-provided vehicles. It provides examples and clarifications. So it's always a good reference if, with these questions that you have, go back and review the things that we have, the tools we have available on our website, and we hope that we've got it explained well for you. But back to the utilization, this is July 1st, the beginning of each fiscal year. Utilization forms are void and new forms must be submitted. The review of this section of the legislative rule for categories of exemption to be used with Form DOA FM 013. Vehicles, I always state this when I used to give out vehicles. Proper utilization of a vehicle, if you think about it, the legislative wants you to, you can't replace a vehicle till the vehicle's 5 years old and has 120,000 miles. You simply do the math, and you can see that if you're asking, the legislature's asking this vehicle to be used 1,100 miles per month. It's given you, that's, when you do the average, that's well below it. But in ARI, you can see whether a vehicle is averaging this amount, and Kenny, you always have something it's better than what I've got shown here on the screen. But your average, you can always tick and see. But this is also a requirement. It's coming up, so if anybody has any questions, you can let us know. SEV and ERV, this report is due. This is what Tim was talking about a little bit previously. The vehicles assigned to employees whose job duties require the constant use and continuous availability of specialized equipment, which cannot feasibly or economically be transferred between a pool vehicle or carried in personal vehicles. Such equipment may include medical supplies, monitoring or testing equipment, or equipment necessary to carry out the mission for the spending unit. And then the ERV is just stated a little bit differently, but each time you've requested a utilization exception and you've used either the SEV or the ERV, you must let us know how many times that vehicle was actually used in that category. So that's something else that, if you're claiming it this year, you need to remember that you need to track that and know whether that vehicle has, how many times it was actually utilized in that capacity. Again, I spoke about the replacement and life cycle of a management of the vehicle. The legislative did change. The existing vehicle used to be 4 years and have 100,000. Now it's 5 years and must have more than 120,000 miles. So that's an and. It's got to be 5 years old and have 120,000 miles. Of course, there's if the vehicle's been destroyed or is considered a total loss, that vehicle can be replaced, of course. And also, if your requirements, if your maintenance and repairs cannot be justified based on the remaining life of the vehicle, then that exception is should be sent to the director of Fleet Management Division, Kenny Yoakum, and he would review the maintenance history of this vehicle and let you know whether that's approved or not. The mandatory forms that need to be submitted to the Fleet Management Division, of course, we've talked about the agency fleet coordinator contact profile. The lease and administrative agreement. Anytime an agency leases a vehicle from from FMD, this is given to the AFC, and they are responsible for ensuring the completion of the driver information and also updating that information in ARI. The fleet utilization exemption, this form is submitted annually and should denote the specified reason for the vehicle's underutilization. And then FM 21, the vehicle purpose update. This again, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, this is something that should be, are you sending out a form on this as well?
I am currently not, but
Okay.
I know that our account reps, like Teresa and James and Stephanie, they are, when they are communicating with the agencies, they're kind of saying, hey, these are vehicles that don't have purposes. We kind of need purposes for them. So,
and this information is then also updated in ARI, correct?
Yes. Okay. This is updated. And actually, when you fill out your utilization exemption form, there's a column on there for vehicle purpose. So part of your utilization exemptions is also updating the vehicle purpose on those underutilized vehicles.
Did anybody address Anita's question about the VIN requested on our forms? Is it acceptable to just use the last 6 digit, which is the ARI vehicle ID number? Or do you want the whole VIN?
I'm going to need the whole VIN because on the we do have vehicles in ARI where the last 6 digits are the same.
Yep. So it just so that's the answer there. Thanks. Mandatory forms also that need to be submitted to the Fleet Management Division. We have the Form 059, which is the vehicle request form. And anytime a vehicle is being acquired or decommissioned prior to the occurrence, this form must first receive approval from the Cabinet Secretary of the agency and then to the Fleet Management Division. And as of March 2021, the Governor's office is the final approval. So that's a little bit of a change. It was going to the Governor's office and then to Kenny. So it's come back to FMD before that. Also, the driver list of non-compensatory driver business reasons. We've spoken about that. That's another form that must be submitted. And then the vehicle log sheet. This is only mandatory if commuting mileage is recorded. Commuting mileage must be reported to FMD on a monthly basis. This form provides a template for the information for your vehicle log sheet that information should include. If no commuting miles are driven, this form should not be submitted to FMD and should be retained internally only. And Dan has a question about COVID and that use, that reason for an underutilized vehicle. Anybody want to speak to that?
What I've kind of been telling people about COVID is the utilization exemption form is kind of like a combination of, are your vehicles underutilized and do you think they're going to be utilized this year? Because I mean, let's be honest here, COVID is going to be gone in the next 10 days, the way, no more mask wearing and things like that. I know it's not gone, but I'm just saying that, I mean, we're kind of reaching a point where we're going back to normal. I'm air quoting as I say that.
Yes.
Going back to normal. So it's kind of one of those things to where if you feel pretty good that in fiscal year 2022, your vehicles are going to be above that 1,100, then I would say you don't have to fill out a form for it. But I will say that if I start looking at vehicles and I see 6 months from now that you're not getting 1,100, you may get an email from me saying, hey, these vehicles aren't meeting the requirements. And I'm not that mean. Like if they're averaging 1,000, I'm not going to email you on that one vehicle. You know what I mean? But
right. And Mandy has a question about the actual log sheets. It's just the form that we need, Form 67, correct?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'll have to look into that one.
We'll get back with you, Mandy.
I think the logs are maintained at the agency level. We just need the ending odometer for any folks that don't use our services, and then the amount of commuting miles that were traveled during that month. So if you have so many vehicles, you would just send us the last 6 of the VIN, and it traveled 200 commuting miles. Ending odometer is this.
Thank you. These are mandatory forms, but they should be used internally, meaning they're for your purposes in providing documentation, required documentation. The fleet policies and procedure driver acknowledgement, this refers back to the governor's administrative policy. And then the 23 form is just a way to assist you documenting your driver's defensive driving training and your DMV license record that you must submit to BRIM, and that's an internal use only. We also have some supplementary forms that can be used to for your purposes. There's a fuel card user agreement, a fleet inspection checklist. These are all, and then the vehicle log sheet. These are all just supplemental forms for your use to make your life hopefully a little bit easier. The fuel and maintenance, Legislative Rule 148 expanded on House Bill 4015. And it states that each spending unit that owns, uses, or maintains a state vehicle shall utilize the vehicle management services provided by the Fleet Management Division for all state vehicles. Yeah, of course, with everything, there are some agencies that may request in writing for an exemption to our fleet management programs. But this is done sent to Fleet Management Division. They would evaluate to Kenny, his attention, and he would evaluate the request for the exemption and recommend his approval or denial of the request. And that would then go to the Secretary for the Department of Administration, who would make the final decision on the approval or denial of the request. Does anybody have any questions about that? We have a couple of new responsibilities. I know you all had it already enough probably, but these are things also that can make your life easier. We've opened up, given you more tools in ARI that you can maintain for your fleet. You're responsible for making sure that all driver and overnight address information for each vehicle is entered into ARI. And we're also responsible for making sure that a maintenance approval hierarchy is in place for all vehicles so that the maintenance on them can be approved correctly by the agencies. The AFC is responsible for approving and routing all maintenance events, the routing of fleet-related invoices, collecting and filing vehicle logs, and all commuting miles must be reported to FMD monthly. The two new basic changes with the ARI information that we have opened up for your use, that will be discussed in the ARI section, which will be next month. And I think it's going to make everything easier once you get more and more involved and really use an ARI and the reporting segments that they have available for you. We also made a change this year with assigning accounts. I know that in the past, it was Kenny's feeling that if you had a fuel-related problem, you needed to call this person. And if you had a maintenance event, you called this person. And if you needed to replace a vehicle or had an accident, you called somebody else. Well, we decided that it might be better to have a new account structure to make the interaction with FMD more efficient and positive experience. Each account representative, we've broken down each one of the divisions of government, like electoral or administration, commerce, DHHR, environment, etc. And we've broken that up to equally divide between 3 people. Each one of them have about 2,500 vehicles. The account representative will be whom your AFC's contact for any of your questions related to any of your vehicle-related questions, whether it's fueling and maintenance or ARI or anything. They will also oversee setting up ARI access and maintenance approval levels for their respective agencies. Of course, we're all here available for you, but we're just trying to make this more efficient and develop relationships with each of you to try to make things easier for you and more efficient and productive. To request ARI access and set up a maintenance approval levels, an AFC needs to fill out DOA FM 033, which is an ARI user access request form, and submit it to their account representatives. James is responsible, and of course, we've got this at the cabinet level. James Parsons, he has always been over our ARI maintenance section, and he's still our guru there. But he has cabinet levels, as you can read: administrative, commerce, DHHR, environmental, higher ed, revenue, senior services, arts, culture, and history. And his contact information is there. And Teresa Taylor, she's new to our fuel lead, and she has the cabinet levels as elected officials, Homeland Security, veterans, miscellaneous, quasi-judicial, legislative, education, and community college. And Stephanie Lane, of course, she's our vehicle coordinator. So she has one cabinet level, which is a pretty big cabinet level of transportation. And of course, like I've always state, we have an open door policy. We're available here. If you have any questions, you want to come one-on-one training, we're always happy to assist you with any needs you have. In talking about the new maintenance approval process, in addition to establishing assigned accounts, we've also implemented a new maintenance approval process to try to be more efficient. If you remember in the past, if you had a maintenance event, the approval, if it was over your threshold limit that you have set up for your agency, it would come to James. James would send an email to you. You would then send it out to the field rep and make sure that you want to do. Well, we tried to streamline that to where you all have the ability to be aware of your maintenance events and be your first point of contact. This means that the agencies are now approving all maintenance on their vehicles and that they can set a hierarchy of contacts for maintenance approvals. There's 6 levels of maintenance approval contacts with your FMD account manager, always being the 6th or the last level. We've recommended, and of course, what this means is that the first contact listed is a person who is contacted first. Should ARI need to contact someone about a vehicle going in for maintenance? If ARI can't get a hold of that first contact, they will then move on to the second contact. And if they can't get a hold of that person, then they move on to the third, and so on. In most cases, the maintenance approver is contacted through email, and a dollar threshold can be set for your maintenance approvals. FMD recommends the dollar amount threshold be set at $100. I know sometimes I even did it myself. I went in just for an oil change, and all of a sudden I got my receipt back, and there's a new battery on there too. If that innocent oil change then became over $100. So it's just a way that you can be in control of the money and the maintenance that an event is set up for your agency. Always try to remember to call 1-800-CAR-CARE first. And Mandy, I can hear you singing it. But that's the best line of defense for any of your agencies. And remember, the driver of the vehicle cannot be the maintenance approval for that vehicle. Is everybody okay on that? You all have been doing this for a while, so it should be good. This is an example of the FMD vehicle with the maintenance approval hierarchy set up with a $500 threshold. This is how we have ours set up for FMD. You can see that in our contact information, we have set up a fleet at wv.gov, which means that if Lee's not in the office, if Lee Jackson's not in the office, which is our first point of contact, it's going to roll to a general email account that other employees can have access to. And that keeps a driver from being stranded out in the field and not being able to get a maintenance event covered. And look, we made it to slide 31. Yay. Okay, does anybody have any questions? These are our contact information and our toll-free number. Like I said, we have a general mailbox at fleet@wv.gov, or each one of our individual emails are listed below. We unfortunately don't have our new employee on here, Lori Harper, but I'm sure we'll get her added by the next time we have our next meeting. We're very glad to have her on board. Some other new names: Lee Jackson. She takes care of our vehicle rentals, which are daily rentals, and we've got a new kiosk for that. We've really been doing a lot of nice new things that we've tried to make things available so that we can manage the state fleet in a better manner. We're all about trying to save money for the taxpayers and be good stewards for the state of West Virginia, and we appreciate your help. That is all.
Any other questions? Comments? Concerns? Everyone having a good week?
Good job, Beck.
Yeah, great job, Becky. Thanks, guys. I appreciate each of you. So, we're always here to help. Anytime you need us, just give us a call.
Thank you, Becky.
Well, if nobody would like to add anything or has any questions, then I guess we can get off of here. Next month, we will be discussing ARI. That's the exciting stuff. So I hope you're all able to join next month. And again, if not, it will be recorded and it'll be on our website. Hopefully I'll get this one on the website here by the end of the week. So otherwise, I hope you all have a good week, a good month. And if you need anything at all, just feel free to contact us.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you.